You divulge everything, everybody. You vomit it out, boom, right? And they fact check. It takes about 2 years to do your debrief, right? And I was debriefing for FBI, sheriffs, LAPD, and the CDC at the same time. And then they sent a Learjet and they flew me out. They flew me out to an undisclosed location, and they housed me for about 13 months, not in the CDC. And it was there that they told me, you could change lives.
Buenos dias, Gunners Collective TV. Back at it. You already know. Like a torta with some bad habits. Bye up. Bye up. Let's get straight to that intro. Welcome back to the channel, and if you haven't already hit that like and subscribe button, make sure you go ahead and do that. Put your notification bell on all so that way you're directed in the direction of the dope content that I stay kicking, and I appreciate your support. I'm very humbled by it. Thank you. Let's talk about Rene Boxer Enriquez for a minute, right? I know in the past I've said, man, I'm done with doing videos, content on Boxer Enriquez. He has his own channel, and if you guys choose to go over there and support his channel, by all means, do that. There's no hatred here whatsoever. Has he taken over or taken over the prison genre? I could absolutely say yes, without a shadow of a doubt. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, and I'm going to say you could have it, right? But at the same time, he doesn't need my permission, nor does he need your permission to do what he does. He has done plenty. But what is astounding and what has always got me is the fact that this man has self-admitted that he dropped out of an organization. This man is self-admitted and has no qualms with explaining his situation, why he did what he did, and has no problems with expressing, positivity in his life on what he's doing now. But there's no denying the fact, if you've lived that life, if you were a part of a gang, if you are still continuing in the criminal activities and you're a gang member, you feel one way or the other about Boxer Enriquez. I could care less because it doesn't affect my life what he did in the past, okay? Whether it was when he was a straight up killer on the yard, organizing things, controlling yards behind them walls, within the CDCR, having status and being that one, that didn't affect me because I'm from the opposite side of the tracks, meaning everything he had going on only put hardship and burden on the southern side, on his own people. Myself, I had to deal with my own gente and my own people. So to even be doing this video on Boxer, you question yourself and say, why is a guy from up north, Northern California, questioning the integrity of someone from Southern California or doing a video on it? Well, it's as quietly as kept. I'm going to put it out there, right? It's not Boxer. And by no means is this video meant to disrespect him in any form or fashion, because I don't know that man personally. I never was on a yard with him. I have never spoken with him on the phone, behind the scenes, any of that stuff. And it's not because by choice. We just have never crossed paths in this big old world, right? And not to say that we won't in the future. You just never know what could happen. But I don't know that man's whereabouts. I don't know what he's involved in at this moment in time. But I do know that he has a prison content channel on YouTube, and it's blown up. It's blown up in the past months, man. And why not? Why wouldn't you, if you're going to listen to prison stories, if you're intrigued by the prison genre, why not go and get it straight from the horse's mouth? You hear these mythical stories about these organizations in prisons and how they function and how they were ran and who ran them and all these different names. And why not get it from someone who was actually present, who was actually involved? Okay. Now we know he is no longer part of that life, just like I'm no longer part of the Norteño life, right? But at the end of the day, we have something in common. Very little, but something in common. We were both doing time behind those prison walls. And that is like a brotherhood. That when you've done time and you could identify with someone else who has done time, regardless of what type of yard you were on, what yard you were on, you know, and you could recognize when a man knows how to do time. And I can tell you right now, Boxer knew how to do time, and he made it work for him for whatever his reasons were. They're his own personal reasons, and he made it work. And in the California prison system, there's the elite, there's the organizations, and then there are those that are just convicts filling bed space, doing time. Okay. And I was just doing my time. I was functioning as a norteño, and I was willing to defend the household and stand with my people up to a certain point. And he was doing his thing on his side. Okay. But he gained status within a group, and he was very well known, a very charismatic, organized, intelligent individual. You could tell by his mannerisms, the way he speaks. And that's just that, right? He's a very shrewd and smart individual. And so him getting out of prison and transferring that intelligence and all those stories into content creation, it was a matter of time before he took over the prison genre. I seen it coming. But there's something that stands out, and it boggles my mind. And again, this is meant not to disrespect Boxer in any form or fashion. If he takes it as such, then it just is what it is, unfortunately, right? But that's not what I'm getting at here. There's no hatred. There's no disrespect. What he did affected a lot of people and actually changed CDC, right? He was very instrumental in changing rules and changing the way the organizations were able to wiggle and changing a lot of things. Hey, it is widely known throughout the system that Boxer Enriquez is very instrumental. One of the reasons why packages can no longer be sent from the streets. Okay. Now you have to go through places like Walking Horse, Union Supply, Access. Prior to, Boxer debriefing and dropping out of his organization, he was very instrumental in giving, during his debriefing process, giving the cops, the feds, the CDCR, giving them inside information that made them rework the package process, and several other things changed because of Boxer. But you can't solely place the blame on Boxer and his debrief process, right? There was a lot of other things and a lot of other people that were saying and telling on a lot of different shit that was going on. Boxer, because of his notoriety, because of who he was and the status that he carried, is just the one that's looked at as the figurehead or the most well-known, besides, of course, Mundo. And then you have other individuals from different groups that have pretty much done the same thing. Now, we're talking about the debriefing process, and I want to explain something to you. When you hear the word debrief process, people that have never been incarcerated, they've never been locked up, they automatically think that is telling, and you have to tell on everybody to get to the step-down yard or to get to the SNY yards. And quietly as it's kept, that's not the way the debriefing process works. If you are an individual of status, someone well-known like Boxer Enriquez was, of course, he was going to have to give up the ghost. He was going to have to give up a lot to get to that step-down program and to them SNY yards. And a lot of people are under the illusion that Boxer did it because he was selfish and he just wanted to go home and get out of prison. But that is in fact not the case, because they didn't start releasing lifers and people doing a large amount of time to well after Boxer dropped out. So when he did do the debriefing process and drop out, he was not under the assumption that he was going to be going home. That man did it for self-preservation. I'm sure he did it because at that point in time, the crew he was running with, he was the last man standing. He was being looked at by his own group and organization as a sore thumb. He was on his way out. So he felt that it was very, I guess, beneficial for him to do what he did to preserve his life, to save his life. And in doing so, he had to sacrifice his reputation. Not every man can do that. See, people dropping out of gangs and backing up from their organizations could be for a number of reasons. It could be because you're disillusioned with what you're doing. It could be because you got into drug debt. It could be because you're just not cut like that. It could be a number of different reasons, but automatically, once you choose to step away, you're now called a punk, a piece of shit, a rat, a snitch. And there's a lot of people on the other side that have never told on a single soul, yet they are considered rats because they say you are who you flock with, right? And there's stories that are made up about them. And you have dudes that have never been to prison, that have never lived or walked in them shoes, that are the guys that call these guys that. But Boxer is the exception. See, Boxer Enriquez can get away with everything. Let me explain to you. We all know that when Boxer Enriquez dropped out of his group, he went viral on social media for his debriefing process. And it wasn't because of the things he was saying. I'm sure to the guys whose names got spoken on, they felt some type of way. But people were so intrigued by the way this man talked, by the way this man carried himself. This man felt comfortable in his own skin and had more knowledge than the people that were debriefing him, which was crazy because people automatically assume a gang member or someone who's involved in criminality or street life that they're dumb. They're the world's dumbest criminals. But at the end of the day, when Boxer was able to display his intelligence and his way of talk, right? It wasn't, like he said, carnival talk. It was something totally different. He was a very well educated individual who was controlling not only street gangs, but the prison yards, right? And it just blew everyone's mind. And that's why people gravitated towards Boxer Enriquez's story. Now, look, we all know at this point in time, Boxer self-admitted he testified against a lot of people. He did what he felt he had to do to get where he needed to be. Okay, whether it was to save his own skin in his life. And I know a lot of people call it selfish, but you have to think to yourself, what would you do to save your own life? If you hit a prison yard, that people are going to hurt you. They are going to take your wind, your life. Are you willing to go out to that yard and make that ultimate sacrifice? Or are you going to turn an about face and leave your people behind for your own safety and security? Boxer made his choice. Now, there's a lot of people that run around social media that have never been to prison and they question that man's integrity. And I understand it. You know, the old saying, a rat is a rat, right? Someone who told, it boggles everyone's mind and they can't believe when it happens, but it happens frequently. You know, in this day and age, you have people like 6ix9ine, a self-admitted person who testified against someone, running around social media, having fun, and catching Adrian Broner in compromising positions. And everyone seems to forget, you know, if you have money, if you have clout, if you have, I guess, a platform, then you could do whatever you want. See, Boxer Enriquez is a little bit of a different story, but not much. Okay, I've noticed that due to the fact that he doesn't hide his status within the community, I mean, he's not going to tell you where he's at. He's not going to show his face. I understand there's actively people, I'm sure, that want to do something horrible to him, right? He knows that. We all know that. But those are actually the same people and a lot of other people that tap into his content, right? I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I don't watch him from time to time, because I do. I'm intrigued by the prison story. I like listening to stories that I heard about in the past come straight from the horse's mouth or someone that was directly involved. That's truth, that's facts, that's reality. That's as real as it gets, right? That's why I knew when Boxer did start his own channel, it was definitely going to blow up, which it has. And there's no hate here. Hey, I'm proud of an individual that puts in the hard work and the effort to create something. And who would have thought in 2026 we'd be watching Boxer Enriquez on YouTube, okay? But that goes to the moral of this video, because you're asking yourself, why, Gunner, are you doing this? It trips me out that myself, you know, who was never of status like Boxer, never was part of an organization like that, a prison organization. I was part of a crew on the streets. I was involved and invested to a certain degree and level. But as far as being in a position like him, no. And I'll never claim to be that, right? I've always been forward about my status, about me not being active anymore as a gang member, and about me trying to push a positive note for the raza and trying to explain to younger gentlemen, not trying to disillusion them from the gang, but just trying to tell them my story and hoping that an inkling of my story will touch them to the point that they realize, man, it's not everything you think it's cracked up to be. Again, I don't hate on prison organizations, active gang members, or whatever. What they do, I did. So, hey, ponle, get yours. But at the same time, I'll tell my stories the way I want to tell them, right? And that's just it, with a whole bunch of respect. And Boxer does pretty much the same thing. He's self-admitted, and it just boggles my mind that people like myself, people like Dubs, people like other prison content creators get so much hate by the same individuals that would go and leave comments on Boxer's videos like, you're a real one, homie. That's gangster. That's this, that's that. And then double back and go to my platform or go to Dub's platform or many other prison content creators and that are not active or that are not involved in the gangs. And we're all kinds of pieces of shits and rats and punks. And you were on SMYs and you were on 50/50s and all this different shit. Yet Boxer doesn't get the amount of hatred others do. In fact, he gets questioned about Dubs or myself or other people. They question him. Do you know these guys? You ever did time hunting and fishing so they can create more controversy and drama? Now, this is a man who has told on a lot of people, testified, actively worked with the feds in investigations, and maybe even continues to do so. That's his prerogative and his business. He tells it like straight up the way it is, right? But people overlook that. He can get away with all of that because he once had status with an organization and because he's a known and convicted killer. So with that being said, hey, what he did, he was a real one, so he could do that. That makes no fucking sense whatsoever. See, once you drop out of a gang, once you back up, once you do anything that is against the rules and regulation, the reglas, then you are not that no more. And everything that you have done in the past, and believe me, I've heard it a million times, doesn't matter anymore, right? So no hate on Boxer, get yours, and he's going to continue to do him no matter what. But it's the people that are watching from a distance that think that, hey, his debriefing process is different because of who he was or this. Look, let me explain something to you about that. Just because you debrief there's different ways of doing it. If you have status, if you were someone who was controlling the yard and they know, believe me, CDCR, the gang investigative unit, they know exactly who is who and what's what. They know more than everyone else does. The questions they ask them because they already know the answers. That's a fact, right? These prison phones that are being brought in are not untapped. Believe that, right? These tablets are not encrypted with a special thing to decrypt everything that you're talking about. Believe that, right? They're constantly trying to get a leg up on the organizations and the business that's being conducted behind them walls and on the streets on behalf of these organizations. It's just the way it is, right? And they know that just as well as law enforcement knows that. And we all know that. Boxer knows it more so than anyone, right? Because he's very instrumental in creating the conversation and creating the thinking that these officers have into going in there and creating these programs to bust people. It's just a fact, right? But Boxer gets all the love on social media. And does he deserve it? Well, he doesn't deserve hate. And I wouldn't wish that upon no one to have to go through some of the things I myself have to go through and Dubs and other people go through. Haters and trolls and all these guys going in on us because we're no longer out there hurting people and being a menace to society. You know, they're not happy with either or. If we don't sit here and talk about the prison organizations and gangs, then we're scary and we're scared. If we do, then we're pieces of shit and we got to keep it out of our mouth. We can't win one way or the other. But people like Boxer, people like 6ix9ine, people like Sammy the Bull Gravano are able to get away with this. 6ix9ine shouldn't even be in that category, but I guess because he has money and money talks and ratas walk, I guess, right? But when it comes to Boxer and people like Sammy the Bull, people who were high up in actual organizations, people are like, it doesn't matter what they did or what they said or who got incarcerated or what was the reason behind it. They fucking were that man so they could speak on it. The key word is that. They were that man. No longer. Okay? And so it just trips me out that this man can get away with pretty much anything he wants on social media, showing you guys videos and talking about, actual operations that are going on from the Fed's point of view, right? And people are all like, oh, man, you're a real one, man. You got the best content, all that. Yeah, no doubt. It's very in-depth, very well thought out, very well spoken. But at the same time, no hatred on Boxer for what he's doing. He's just making his money and doing his thing. I get it, man. And I don't care if he told on everyone and what he did. That's his business. That's his bed. He'll lie in it, right? But it's the fucking amount of hatred that other content creators get that are no longer gang members or considered dropouts or not actives. And it's like this guy went above and beyond what you could ever comprehend someone doing, yet it's all love and respect by the same exact people. I mean, I've seen comments made that are just treacherous towards myself that have nothing to do with anything I've ever done, right? But then they'll go in the same fucking breath and say, Boxer, you're a real one, bro. I don't care what you did. I support you. but fuck Gunner or fuck Dubs or fuck all these people, right? It's a trip. It's really a trip. And they're like, well, it's because at least he wears it like a badge of honor and he admits it. You know, there was a clip that came across and it was by American Cholo, right? I haven't said that name in a minute, right? We don't like each other. He knows that. I know that. We ain't gonna sugarcoat nothing. No added preservatives. But it was a quote, and he was speaking about Boxer. And he was pretty much saying, yeah, Boxer can get away with anything as well. But that Boxer, you know, even though he's done all those things, he was an informant. He told, he utilized whatever tactic to get out of prison or whatever. And I believe, like I said, when he debriefed, it was much more than just getting out of prison. Later on, that came into play. But at that time, that wasn't even in play, right? He was just trying to get away from the yard where they were going to kill him, or allegedly. And so he was like, oh yeah, as long as he you know, he's forward and he's transparent, it's out there, then it is what it is, basically. Okay. It is not supposed to be like that. That's individualism. That's homeboy favoritism. That's picking and choosing. That is the reason why there's a lot of dudes on the other side right now, because people play that individualism role, the homeboy favoritism. There's dudes from Southern California, dudes from Northern California that have gotten to yards where their enemies are there or people that just don't like them and smut them up, and they get politicked on, and now they're on the other side. Does that make them a rat? Does that make them a punk? No, absolutely not. It doesn't. But that's what they're considered because they're pushed on the other side. But then you have dudes that were on the other side, and just because they come on YouTube and say, hey, you know, I'm this, I'm that, I was here, I was there, now let's move on from that. People do. Oh, he was a real one, homie. No, the fact of the matter is real or not, you're just scared of that individual. You're scared of keeping it real. And a lot of it stems from you just hate other people. So you build other people that have the same exact shit or even worse going on, build them up just so you can shit on the next man. It's absolutely crazy, right? But I see it all the time. It happens with me every day, constantly. And like I said, again, I'm not hating on Boxer people. Oh, you're taking shots at him. I'm not. Everything that I'm saying, he said. It's all real. And it's just unfortunate that people, certain people can get away with what other people can't. But I guess that's the world we fucking live in, right? When it comes to that debriefing process, you know, we've seen it on camera, Boxer debriefing and saying a lot of things. And I'm sure there was a lot of other things said behind the scenes that we weren't privy to see. And it is what it is. But people think that debriefing process means you have to tell on other people. No, you don't. Not at all. There's actually a thing called a biography where you actually have to write your biography from the moment you got involved in gangs or were born all the way up into that present day. They just want to know what you did. And you don't have to say no names in doing so. Anyone who sits here and says they haven't went through some form or fashion of debriefing process are lying to you. If you were in prison, in the California State Prison, California Prison System, CDCR, and you were an active gang member and you were on a yard participating up under a group or an organization, yes, you did debrief in some form or fashion. Maybe not so like Boxer did, but you did have to write a cover letter, an essay, a biography, or say something. Now, did you have to tell on people? Not necessarily. That's not the way it works. But other people hear fucking the word debrief and they automatically think you do. And then you have actually fucking dudes that are on SNY yards and dropouts that are actually have channels on social media that sit there and call people like myself and Dubs and everyone else rats when they were on an SNY yard themselves, but they never speak on what they went through. They never talk about if they debrief. They call people debriefer and debriefers and this and that, but they never talk about their situation. They sugarcoat that. It's weird, right? Hey, everyone is of same status. Whether Boxer told on 1 million people or told on none, he's still considered no good and not welcomed, right? And that's just it. So again, my thing is not to point fingers at Boxer and say, why does he get away with everything? He's not better than me. Not so, not at all, right? But it's to point out the fucking stupid individuals that leave comments that are making a man more like a king. You know, it's just a trip. You'll sit there and talk shit about, oh, well, you were fucking never like him. He killed all these people. And is that cool or what? Is that what you're in it for? You're trying to live vicariously through him? Well, if you're going to live part of the story, make sure you live the whole fucking story. Make sure you live to the very end when all the other shit was going on. Okay? Anyways, that's just my little hot take. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive, struggle, and strive for what I truly believe in, and that's the betterment of all people. Now, go ahead, haters. Gunner's hating on Boxer Enriquez. No, I'm not. You know, hey, what views he gets, what money he's making, man, hey, get yours, right? I'm going to get mine. And that's just how it goes, man. So come on. Let's start with the hateful comments, right? Because I'm going to speak on whatever the fuck I want to speak on. Bang, bang.